has released a video showing a tunnel being blown up by its forces. It also said the network of tunnels was destroyed in a controlled manner. Another Israeli army footage from northern Gaza shows troops engaging suspected militants in Shijaya neighborhood of Gaza City after days of intense fighting here. Army says it has established operational control over the neighborhood. The IDF says that in Jabalia, the soldiers enabled the orderly evacuation of the civilian population from a school complex. The IDF said ground troops conducted searches in the school and located numerous weapons as well. Hamas said that an Israeli strike killed the head of the Palestinian side of the newly reopened Kerem Shalom border crossing on Thursday, along with 3 more people. After weeks of pressure, Israel approved the temporary reopening of Kerem Shalom on December 15th to enable direct aid deliveries to Gaza rather than through the Rafah crossing from Egypt. Now, Israeli officials have not commented yet on the accusations, while the United Nations Human Rights Office has said it had received reports that Israeli troops summarily killed at least 11 unarmed Palestinians in Gaza. It said that the incident raises alarm about the possible commission of a war crime. Israeli army claims that it has killed 2,000 militants in Gaza this month. Hamas says fighting, of course, the ongoing war has killed over 20,000 Palestinians so far. Israeli strikes have been hitting civilian areas and Gaza hospitals are now overwhelmed. Now, these are the visuals from Rafah in southern Gaza. The moment was captured when a journalist reporting live was just meters away from the scene of airstrikes hitting several buildings close to a hospital in the area. The journalist then took cover while the cameraman filmed the entire situation. And all this is happening while several leaders are engaging in talks for a respite in the war. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron is in Egypt, where he repeated his call for a sustainable ceasefire where Hamas is no longer able to threaten Israel. Then French President Emmanuel Macron arrived in Jordan to discuss with King Abdullah about humanitarian and medical aid to Gaza, while the UAE foreign minister met a senior Palestinian Authority official in Abu Dhabi, where they discussed international efforts to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza.
And in other global news, uncertainty looms over a new ceasefire deal in the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Well, Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh's visit to Egypt and Mossad chief's engagement with other officials for the talks, these are being seen as a positive sign. However, both the sides have again indicated that a new agreement right now might be off the table. Hamas has reportedly rejected an Israeli proposal for a week-long truce, as it has insisted for Israel to implement a ceasefire before negotiations. But Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has meanwhile vowed to continue with the war and eliminate Hamas. Take a listen.
We are continuing the war to the end. It will continue until Hamas is eliminated, until victory. Whoever thinks that we will stop is detached from reality. We will not stop the fighting until all of the goals that we have set are achieved. The elimination of Hamas, the release of our hostages, and the removal of the threat from Gaza. We are continuing the war to the end. It will continue until Hamas is eliminated, until victory. Whoever thinks that we will stop is detached from reality. We will not stop the fighting until all of the goals that we have set are achieved. The elimination of Hamas, the release of our hostages, and the removal of the threat from Gaza.
Well, U.S. President Joe Biden also said that the country is pushing for a new deal. However, it is not expected soon. Meanwhile, a United Nations Security Council vote on Gaza has again been delayed for third day straight. This as Biden says that the U.S. support for the resolution is still unresolved. Well, the U.S. diplomats are working out to agree on the language of the draft resolution, calling for a halt in fighting and major increase in aid supplies to Gaza. Well, Israel, on the other hand, has expanded its fight in Gaza. The Israeli military says that troops are now also fighting in the Tufa and the Daraj neighborhood of the Gaza city. Israel has released footage of a vast tunnel network they uncovered in Gaza that it says were used by Hamas leaders. The RDF say that these tunnels were uncovered from the properties registered to Yahya Sinwar and other senior Hamas organizers of the October 7th attack. Well, the Israeli onslaught continues in southern Gaza. At least 12 people have died. They've been killed in the Israeli strikes in Rafah in the last 24 hours, while dozens were wounded. Meanwhile, Yemen's Houthis have threatened the United States to attack its warships operating in the region. And this in response to the U.S. announcement of the establishment of a new international coalition to protect commercial vessels sailing through the Red Sea. Well, the Houthi leader on Wednesday warned that his forces will target the American battleships with drones and missiles if Yemen is targeted. Well, U.S. says its Al-Assad air base in Iraq has been attacked. Well, no injuries have been reported in the latest attack. U.S. bases in West Asia are being frequently attacked since the war broke out on October 7th. U.S. says its Iraqi security forces seized a flatbed truck modified to launch rockets that was located at the site.
Uncertainty looms over a new ceasefire deal in the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh's visit to Egypt and Mossad chief's engagements with the other officials for the talks has been seen as a positive sign. However, both sides have again indicated that a new agreement right now might be off the table. Hamas has reportedly rejected an Israeli proposal for a week-long truce, as it has insisted for Israel to implement a ceasefire before negotiations.
We are continuing the war to the end. It will continue until Hamas is eliminated, until victory. Whoever thinks that we will stop is detached from reality. We will not stop the fighting until all of the goals that we have set are achieved. The elimination of Hamas, the release of our hostages, and the removal of the threat from Gaza.
We have been clear for some time that since the occupation stopped the temporary truce, we have informed all parties about the clear and specific position that there will be no negotiation on the issue of prisoners before stopping the aggression.
US President Joe Biden also said that the country is pushing for a new deal. However, it's not expected soon. Meanwhile, a United Nations Security Council vote on Gaza has again been delayed for a third day straight. This, as Biden says, US support for the resolution is still unresolved. US diplomats are working out to agree on the language of the draft resolution calling for a halt in fighting and major increase in aid deliveries to Gaza. Israel, on the other hand, has expanded its fight in Gaza. Israeli military says troops are now also fighting in the Tufa and Daraj neighbourhood of the Gaza city. Israel has released footage of a vast tunnel network they uncovered in Gaza that it says were used by Hamas leaders. The IDF says these tunnels are uncovered from the properties registered to Yahya Sinwar and other senior Hamas organisers of the October 7th attack. Israelis' onslaught continues in southern Gaza. At least 12 people died in Israeli strikes in Rafah in the last 24 hours, while dozens were wounded. Meanwhile, Yemen's Houthi rebels have threatened the United States to attack its warships operating in the region. This in response to the US announcement of the establishment of a new international coalition to protect commercial vessels sailing through the Red Sea. Houthi leader on Wednesday warned that his forces will target American battleships with drones and missiles if Yemen is targeted. US says its Al-Assad airbase in Iraq has been attacked. No injuries have been reported in the latest attack. US bases in West Asia are being frequently attacked since the war broke out. The US says its Iraqi security forces seized a flatbed truck modified to launch rockets that was located at the site. Well, for more on this, we've got our correspondent Jodie Cohen coming from us from Ranana live. Jodie, talks appear to be breaking down on this potential hostage rescue deal. Give us the latest.
Hi, Oliver. So I'm actually what's being called Hostages Square in Tel Aviv, and it's a place where tents have been set up and people can come and speak to the relatives of the 129 hostages still being held in Gaza. And I can tell you, I've been speaking to these families over the weeks, and the anguish is building. It's now day 76 since they've been taken hostage into Gaza. And as you said, it looks like the talks aren't making progress on a new hostage release deal. So Israel offered a one-week pause in fighting to Hamas in exchange for 40 hostages, including the women and those 2 babies that are still being held. And Hamas has reportedly rejected this, saying that they want to see a ceasefire before any talks. And they also want to see the freeing of all Palestinian prisoners from Israeli prisons, including those convicted of murder. Now, the Palestinian Quds News is reporting that Egypt is pressurizing Hamas to accept Israel's proposals, but according to an Israeli official, they're not close to a new deal yet. They're still negotiating. And as you said, there are talks also ongoing regarding this UN Security Council resolution that's calling for a ceasefire. That vote has been postponed yet again. Israel and the US are against the ceasefire. They say that would be sending a message to terror groups that they can get away with mass murder, that there are still hundreds of thousands of Israelis displaced from their homes, that they wouldn't be able to return to their homes on the border because it wouldn't be safe, because Hamas still poses a threat, and of course because of 129 hostages still being held in Gaza. So the US is negotiating on the wording of the resolution, reportedly asking for it to be amended to a suspension in hostilities rather than a ceasefire.
Absolutely. And as this international pressure rises, what is your sense on the ground there that Israel will be listening to the international community and that potentially the fighting will end?
So we know that the UN has said that Israel has ordered more evacuations in the Khan Yunis area, and also Israel's Defense Minister Gallant has said that where a mission in a particular area is achieved, then they can transition to the next phase, and slowly that will lead to the return of the local population there. And commentators are suggesting that would happen in North Gaza first. Now, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that ending the war is the administration in the US's #4 priority for 2024, and that's after Ukraine, China and coalition building. He also questioned the world's sole focus on Israel and not Hamas, saying that virtually no one is demanding that Hamas stop hiding behind civilians or lays down its arms. And he actually suggested that the war could be over tomorrow if that happened, and said that any other country that was attacked like Israel was on the 7th of October would be doing the same thing. So right now it appears that there's no hostage deal and also no end to the fighting in sight.
Jodie Cohen reporting live from Ranana. Many thanks for your insight there.
At least about 20 nations have joined the US-led coalition to protect Red Sea shipping lanes from attacks by Houthi rebels. The Pentagon has said that the countries will hold joint patrolling in the southern part of the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden to safeguard commercial shipping from the drone attacks of the Houthis. The Iran-backed Houthis have repeatedly targeted vessels in the vital shipping lanes, and it has claimed that its missiles and drone attacks are aimed at supporting the Palestinians, and these attacks on these shipping containers are aimed at those ships that are trading with Israel. So let's also take a look at the importance of the Red Sea transit route. The Red Sea is a key route linking the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea. An estimated 20,000 ships pass through the Suez Canal each year. It is estimated that about 12% of global trade passes through the Red Sea. However, the Houthis' constant threat is forcing the world's biggest shipping companies not to stop sending their ships through the trade route. If ships don't pass through the Red Sea and Suez Canal, then they'll need to travel around Africa, adding considerably to time and to the cost of the journeys. Experts also say that this could, of course, impact the price of goods in the next few months. The shipping delay could also disrupt supply chains, and Egypt stands to suffer hugely, as the fee paid by the ships using Suez Canal are a key source of its foreign currency earnings.
Our top focus amid the ongoing war with Israel, Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of the Palestinian militant group Hamas, is in Cairo. Well, this is to discuss the possibility of brokering another ceasefire and renewing hostage negotiations. Haniyeh, who otherwise resides in Qatar, last travelled to Egypt in early November before the announcement of the only ceasefire in the Gaza war so far. Interestingly, representatives of the Palestine Islamic Jihad militant group will also be taking part in the talks. This as some Israeli hostages are under their custody as well. Now, according to reports, Israel has presented a plan to the mediators which could secure the release of some 30 to 40 more hostages. Israel's plan prioritizes remaining elderly women and men in need of urgent medical care in exchange for Palestinians held in Israeli prisons, who have been convicted of more serious offences than the women and teenagers who were released in the previous truce. Haniyeh, who is in Egypt with a high-level Hamas delegation, will be meeting with the Egyptian intelligence chief. He will discuss the delivery of humanitarian aid, withdrawal of Israeli army from the Gaza Strip, and the return of displaced people to their towns and villages in the north of Gaza. The truce would be open to extension only if there is an agreement on new conditions for further releases. While on one hand, Hamas has rejected any further temporary pause and has said that it will discuss only a permanent ceasefire, Israel has ruled out a permanent ceasefire and said that it will only agree to limited humanitarian pauses until Hamas is defeated.
We are continuing the war to the end. It will continue until Hamas is eliminated, until victory. Whoever thinks that we will stop is detached from reality. We will not stop the fighting until all of the goals that we have set are achieved. The elimination of Hamas, the release of our hostages, and the removal of the threat from Gaza. We are attacking Hamas with fierce fire everywhere, including today. We have also attacked their accomplices near and far. All Hamas terrorists, from the first to the last, are dead men walking. They have only two possibilities: surrender or die.
Meanwhile, Haniyeh met with Iran's foreign minister before travelling to Cairo for talks. Israeli defense forces have successfully reached the tunnels in Gaza twice, almost catching hold of the top Hamas leader, Yahya Sinwar. Now, according to the report, Sinwar had narrowly escaped from the tunnel right before the IDF managed to reach him. Now, IDF spokesperson said that it had specific information about the tunnel where Sinwar was hiding. However, he fled the tunnel only a few hours before the IDF conducted the raid. Local media outlets reported earlier that IDF operations have been focused around the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis. This with the primary objective of killing Yahya Sinwar. Now, Sinwar has escaped capture by the IDF twice in recent days. Further, other reports also indicate that the Hamas leader is now on the move and hasn't been staying in one place for a long period. Now, this manhunt has led the Israeli troops to uncover a previous hiding space of Mohammad Deif, the commander of Hamas's military wing. Earlier on Sunday, Israeli soldiers raided the vacation homes of several Hamas leaders, Sinwar being one of them. The IDF captured the office of Hamas's Khan Yunis brigade commander. This, along with an underground and terror infrastructure. The forces also captured the main square of Bani Suhaila, which is a suburb of Khan Yunis. Sinwar is currently believed to be hiding in Khan Yunis. He had earlier fled the north of the strip by using a humanitarian convoy during the ongoing conflict with Israel. Now, despite other reports, there is no confirmation of his residence in Khan Yunis. Israeli forces have called Sinwar the mastermind of the October 7th attack, the worst attack that their nation has ever faced, when hundreds of Hamas gunmen crossed the border and rampaged through towns. Now, as the conflict intensifies, Israel vows to continue its operations until reaching senior Hamas officials.
Fighting has escalated in Gaza during the last 24 hours. Amid ongoing negotiation efforts, a United Nations Security Council vote on a bid to boost aid to Gaza is now scheduled for Friday after another day of delay. United States, which holds veto power, has reportedly won changes it wanted in the language of the draft and said it could now support the proposal. Meanwhile, Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh was in Egypt for a second day for negotiations on Thursday. However, Hamas and other Palestinian factions have taken a unanimous approach that another hostage and prisoner exchange would take place only when fighting stops in Gaza. Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen confirmed negotiations on a hostage release were ongoing but declined to provide any further details on this. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has once again said that Israel will fight till victory.
הברירה שאני מציע לחמאס היא מאוד פשוטה. להיכנע או למות. אין ולא תהיה להם שום ברירה אחרת.
Israel says it has destroyed a strategic terror tunnel network in central Gaza City. The Israeli army has released a video showing a tunnel being blown up by its forces. It said that the network of tunnels was destroyed in a controlled manner. Another Israeli army footage from northern Gaza shows troops engaging suspected militants in Shujaiya neighborhood of Gaza City. And after days of intense fighting here, army says it has established operational control over the neighborhood. While the IDF says that in Jabalia, the soldiers enabled the orderly evacuation of the civilian population from